Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to the United States with plans to meet President Biden at the UN General Assembly this week, as his country faces perhaps its worst domestic crisis ever. And it's not about the Palestinian conflict. It's about Israelis fighting Israelis. Massive numbers have poured into the streets to protest the Netanyahu coalition, Israel's most far-right government ever, and its move to weaken the court system. The judicial overhaul is seen as so radical, President Biden has urged Netanyahu to walk away from this, telling him on the phone to uphold our, quote, shared democratic values.
The story will continue in a moment.
This is what up to 200,000 Israelis across the country have done every Saturday night for over 8 months. This packed protest is in Tel Aviv. Some nights have turned violent, with police clashes, counter-protests, and cars ramming into the crowds. It can feel like the country is unraveling. The protests were triggered by the government's judicial initiative to sap the Supreme Court of much of its power. A wide majority of the country sees weakening the court as a power grab, since it is the only check in Israel on the government.
This is a red alert on our democracy!
People who had never demonstrated in their lives have poured into the streets like Eyal Neve. He leads a group of tens of thousands of military reservists who are at the forefront of this democracy movement. They call themselves brothers and sisters in arms, as it says on their T-shirts. They're pilots, fighters, intelligence officers. Some are war heroes. Many still go on dangerous missions.
And now the danger is from inside.
More than the enemies from
now,
without.
Yes, more, much more. This is an existential threat to Israel.
We spoke to 3 of them. Shira Etting.
I was a combat helicopter pilot.
Ron Scherf.
Commander in the Special Forces.
And Omri Ronen.
I'm a former officer in an elite commander unit.
When a regime, a government, wants to gain unlimited power, people are afraid. And the people in the streets today are afraid that the government is going to gain unlimited power without judicial review.
They all served under Netanyahu's past governments without hesitation, but fear this one, a coalition of settler extremists and the ultra-Orthodox. The head of national security has had multiple convictions, including supporting terrorism against Arabs. The finance minister is a self-described fascist homophobe. As for Netanyahu, he's in the midst of 3 separate trials on charges of corruption. The protesters say that laws his government has introduced, over 200 of them, would not only weaken the courts, but control the press and diminish individual rights, and that this is how democracies like Hungary became autocratic.
What happened in Hungary and Poland will not happen here.
There is a trend, and it's going against you.
Yeah.
Around the world.
We'll be the first to stop it.
You're all determined.
We are not joking. We are really trying to stop it, and we will succeed.
One of their big worries is that without a strong Supreme Court, the ultra-Orthodox bloc in the government could turn Israel into a theocracy where biblical laws prevail.
Our Supreme Court is our last line of defense. This is our last safeguard. We need them empowered, we need them independent. That's what we fight for.
What is at stake for women, Shira?
That we will be sitting in the back of the bus.
Literally?
Literally.
Are you married?
I'm married to a woman, a doctor. We have a daughter. She's 1 year and 8 months.
Her fear of an assault on women's and gay rights is well-founded. A government member said the gay community is more dangerous than ISIS and Hezbollah. Another major complaint is that the ultra-Orthodox hardly pay any taxes and don't have to serve in the military, which is compulsory for all other Jewish Israelis. The Supreme Court ruled that that is not fair. But defying the court, the Orthodox plan to pass a law in the Knesset, Israel's parliament, that would turn their unofficial military exemption into an ironclad law.
They want a law that they will not go to the army. My 15 years old, in 3 years, he will go to the army. I'm gonna not sleep like 3 years. And the other father, the ultra-Orthodox father, will sleep all the time.
Eyal Neve, father of 6, is so passionate about this, he's working at Brothers and Sisters in Arms round the clock. He and Ron served together in Israel's most famous commando unit, like the Green Berets, called Sayarat Matkal. They're using their military skills to lead a campaign of civil disobedience and harassment, including at the homes of Knesset members, to pressure them to vote down the judicial overhaul.
You want to make those elected officials understand that what they're doing is wrong. You want to wake up and shake up people. And you don't do that by being nice.
That means forming human chains in front of the Defense Ministry. They block major traffic arteries. Their barricade of the Knesset brought out police water cannons. Members, including Ron, have been arrested and interrogated. Here, they're surrounding the car of Justice Minister and Vice Prime Minister Yariv Levin, the architect of the controversial judicial overhaul. They wreak havoc outside his home by burning tires and disturbing his neighbors. He says he respects their right to protest, but to remember his government won the election.
No democracy can accept a situation that the government, the elected government, that has a majority in the parliament, won't be able to pass any bill and to do anything because there are protests, because there are some people that are against it.
You say that people who fear that there won't be equal rights for everybody are completely mistaken and their charges are baseless. However, you are part of the most right-wing government that Israel has ever had.
I'm proud to be part of that government, and I think that's what Israelis wanted to see.
But you have people in your cabinet who have made openly racist and homophobic statements, and they're ministers.
I can assure you that the vast majority of the members of parliament that support this government stand firmly behind democratic and liberal principles.
But under your rules, if they all pass, the government could overrule the court. Am I wrong?
This is not what I'm offering. The situation in Israel is that the Supreme Court is above the government, is above the parliament, is even above the will of the people. What I want to do is to balance it.
He says the court is an elite bastion that too often overrules lawmakers chosen by the people. The fight over the court has brought the country to a cold civil war. In July, the first step of Levin's judicial overhaul passed, severely limiting the court's power to strike down government decisions. Some 10,000 military reservists were so upset, they pledged to stop showing up for duty. Some of Netanyahu's allies suggested they should be tried, even executed.
If you want pilots to be able to fly and shoot bombs and missiles into houses knowing they might be killing children, they must have the strongest confidence in the people making those decisions.
The moral values of them.
Exactly.
When they made their decision, many brothers and sisters in arms came to tears.
It was the hardest things to do. When you are in your DNA, a soldier, this is what I do 25 years. It's in my blood. It's like to cut a hand.
Do you know what they say about you, your group? That you're unpatriotic and that you're traitors.
They can say whatever they want. I am a patriot. Every year I go to reserve and serve. I leave the house, I leave my children, I leave my wife, I leave everyone to serve. My friends died for this country.
The military has warned that losing so many pilots and high-ranking reservists could jeopardize readiness and hurt national security. But several former heads of the military and Mossad support the protest and blame the government for allowing the situation to come to this. If you did find out that Israel was at risk because of so many reservists leaving, would you step back and withdraw your proposals?
What's the price of democracy? What are you suggesting me to do? We'll tell the Israeli citizens, okay, don't go to vote. There's no need to hold elections. We'll come to those ex-militarists and we'll ask them what we are allowed to do or not.
One issue rarely mentioned by the brothers and sisters in arms is the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. If you don't include Palestinian rights as part of what you're fighting for, then how can you say you're fighting for democracy?
Many Israelis have different opinions on the Palestinian conflict, and it's a very dividing issue.
So your coalition would splinter, the protest coalition.
Yeah, if you want to be able to solve the occupation one day, and I think that everyone here does, the only way to stop it and to solve it is to make sure Israel remains a democracy.
This past week, the Supreme Court held a hearing to decide whether to revoke the first step of Levine's judicial package. If the court does, Netanyahu won't say whether he will comply. If he doesn't, it would lead to an unprecedented crisis, leaving it up to the military, the police, and the citizens to decide whose orders to follow, the courts or the elected officials. Brothers and Sisters in Arms says it's red alert for Israel's future, with democracy at stake. But you know, in terms of democracy, you can't forget this is a government that was voted in by the people of Israel. And that's democracy.
Every democracy that turned into a dictatorship was elected in a democratic way. This is how democracies turn into dictatorships.
And it's not like you wake one day and you say, okay, now we're a dictatorship. Small, small things will change the face of Israel. People, you know, tend to say, wow, in my country this can happen? No, it's only these guys shouting. But it's happening.